According to the Asian Development Bank, Thailand could witness its economic growth slow 4 to 4.5% this year due to the automotive sector hit by the supply chain disruptions from Japan's disaster and the tightened monetary stance to curb inflation. The Manila-based bank forecasts Thailand to post a 4.5 to 5% growth in 2012. In the July edition of its Asia Economic Monitor released today, Thailand, Malaysia, and Philippines are likely to see growth taper due to diminished export demand and tighter monetary policy. Indonesia stands to oppose the trend with strong domestic demand and expected to drive growth to 6.4% in 2011, above a 6.1% growth last year. After a strong rebound in 2010, economic growth in emerging East Asia will moderate this year and in 2012 as authorities continue to battle inflation and advanced economies try to shore up a tumble-down recovery, the ADB report said. However, the risk of rising inflation leading to a wage price spiral could be unfavorable for the East Asia's growth. Other risks to the outlook include a more enthusiastic recovery than expected in Japan and unresolved debt problems in the U.S. and Eurozone, increasing financial market volatility, and destabilizing capital flows. ADB points out that greater exchange rate flexibility can help mitigate the effects of global commodity price surges on domestic prices. The report forecasts aggregate GDP growth for emerging East Asia economies of 7.9% in 2011 and 7.7% in 2012. In 2010, aggregate growth reached 9.3%. Ewan Aziz, head of ADB's Office of Regional Economic Integration, reported that growth is easing in most of emerging East Asia as authorities wind down fiscal stimulus measures and tighten monetary policies to counter rising inflation. This is actually a good thing, so stronger economies like China do not overheat. Growth in China moderated slightly to 9.5% in the second quarter of 2011 from 9.7% in the first quarter. Looking ahead, a slow external environment and tighter monetary stance are expected to moderate growth to more sustainable levels of 9.6% for the full year and 9.2% in 2012. The highly trade-dependent newly industrialized economies of Hong Kong, China, Republic of Korea, Singapore, and Taipei, China should also see a return to more sustainable long-term levels of growth as a weakened external environment slows exports.
Now we have a live phone-in from Ms Laxmon.flv, Senior Country Economist, Thailand Resident Mission from the ADB. Good afternoon, Ms. Laxmon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How will the new Thai government's economic policies, such as a big hike of minimum wage to 300 baht, affect the GDP growth outlook?
First of all, we have to understand that the hike in the minimum wage will feed into the inflation pressure.
Right.
We have seen in the first half of this year inflation on the rise, average 3.5%. And with the hike in the minimum wage, it will feed into the production cost and eventually can feed into the prices and then inflation. So when inflation is rising, it will affect GDP growth.
Right.
Although the export performance is good and domestic consumption remains strong, with inflation, we are revising the GDP figures for Thailand.
Right.
Well, previously, at the beginning of this year, we were saying that Thailand might be able to grow at 4.5% this year. But, of course, when we take into account the impact of the Japanese tsunami and earthquake, and also the inflation on the rise, we are revising the GDP down to 4.2% for this year.
Right.
Kun Laxmon, how long would the effects from the Japanese disaster on the auto industry last?
Yes, well, in the first half of this year, we see the impact on the automotive industry and on electronics industry. If we look at the production figure in June for automotive industry, we can see that the production started to expand. So I would say that for automotive industry, we can see that the impact of the Japanese natural disaster will subside in the second half of this year. It will take a little while longer for electronics industry, but we believe that by the second half of this year, the impact will subside. And next year, in fact, the reconstruction effort in Japan might give a wind gain fall to Thai export.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Kun Laxmon.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.